Hey everyone, welcome to the Academy Consulting Podcast. My name is Arica.
And I'm Mike.
And we are so excited to come today and talk about
God in nature. Finding God in nature, getting to know God better through nature. One of my favorite topics.
Well, favorite topics and favorite season of summer. I know when we talked about this, the God experience, it was spring and we had just had a long winter and we were just so excited to be able to get back into nature because, winters here are winters here.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you are like me, but I wait all year for summer to come. And then Wisconsin springs are always like 2 days and you can't really get into it. So summer's the deal for me. My favorite season of the year by far. And not only do I enjoy being outside a ton and doing a lot of outside kind of stuff, for me it's also like a really good way to connect with God, being outside.
Well, and I think for most people, connect with God in nature to some degree, whether it's, in a deer stand or in a fishing boat or sitting by the ocean. But sometimes we get so busy and sidetracked that we just kind of forget to notice the little details.
Yeah, and I think that happened for me. Like before becoming a pastor, I enjoyed fishing and all the outdoor stuff back then, and I connected with God somewhat, but you could attend church. And, there was a great speaker and great music and all that, and that was a major connection point for me, which was great. However, after being a pastor for 20 years, you're basically the one always speaking at church. You're the one who helps schedule the music. So it's a little bit more difficult to really enjoy it for yourself. You can't really enjoy your own sermon or get a lot from it. So for me, this outdoor connection has been a really big deal now for a long time. Okay,
so for you, how do you best see God in nature?
I see him everywhere, actually. You can't, in my opinion, you can't help but see God in nature. We talked about a thing in one of our lessons about how there's a million shades of green. And there just are. I mean, look at the trees and the grass. If you just look around, there is an unlimited number of shades of just green. That's amazing. Like no one could create that. No human could create all these shades of green. And yet they just grow and it's natural and you don't even have to do anything. It's amazing to me. That's what God can do. So when I see trees or grass or whatever, I just see God. Mm-hmm. And that's just that. I mean, flowers even better, or a mountaintop even better. But just the simplicity of what's around me right now, it could only be God because I know a human can't do it.
Right, and I think our theme verse was from Psalm 19, and the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies display His craftsmanship. And I heard someone say to me once that God paints the sky for you every morning and every night. And how many mornings and nights do we fail to notice?
Yeah, I know exactly, and I just love it. Like the sky, or even like I hope you can hear the birds chirping around us right now. Like that's an amazing sound. There's a beauty to that sound, and I love music, and I love what bands can do, and I love great singers. But the sound of the birds, it's hard to beat. And it's just whatever, 20 stupid birds in the trees around us. That's amazing.
So I think there is some intentionality to it. Would you agree?
Definitely, there's some design. Yeah, I think you can see God in nature through God's design in nature. Mm-hmm. Even just this, like here we sit, right, and the atmosphere is perfect for us. But if you would just go like 1 inch below this atmosphere, 1 inch down into the dirt, you die. You can't breathe in dirt. You're dead. Or if you're over water, you go you can drown in 1 inch of water. You don't have to go very far for it to be totally uninhabitable. So where we are right now is just perfect. That's amazing. And it's no different if you go up. You can go up a bit further, but you can get too high where there's not enough oxygen. This environment that we're sitting in right now and wherever you are watching this right now has been made perfect for us. Mm-hmm. That's nuts.
I just thought of something. Do you remember the movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids?
Yep.
Do you remember when they shrink down so low and they are walking in the grass?
Yeah.
That was so cool. There's a whole world of things happening.
There is.
In the grass and in every lake, ocean.
If you could take a square foot of this grass and the dirt below it, it'd be a whole universe. If you could do the same thing, I love scuba diving. You could take a square foot of the ocean, and there's so many creatures, microscopic all the way to big fish, just in that little foot. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. It's so beautiful, and we don't even truly understand it yet, as humans. We're still exploring the sky, and we're still exploring underneath the earth and the oceans. After all these years, thousands and thousands of years, we're still not even close to exploring or figuring out how it all even works.
Mm-hmm. So we had a couple assignments this month, I guess, in Life Academy and talking about this God experience. And one of them was to go outside and just look around and be intentional about finding 10 things, 10 ways where you can find God in nature. So did you try this? And if you did, can you just tell us about one or two?
Yeah, I've got a good one for you. It's actually a story that I heard a long, long time ago, but I've always remembered. And it kind of goes like this. Scientists these days have advanced so far. I mean, they can do just amazing, amazing things, through science. And there's this story about how scientists got so full of themselves, they basically said to God, we don't need you anymore. Like, we got this all figured out, we can heal, we can do all these amazing things, we don't need you. And God replied, well, yeah, you still need me. And like, no, we don't. We know so much. We can even clone a human, or we can build a human out of the earth right now. And then God said, okay, well, let's see who can build a human. And the scientists said, okay, and they got started, and I'll just take some from this plant. They went and grabbed some dirt. And they were going to start building their human with all their great scientific processes. And God said to them, oh, no, go get your own dirt. Because even this dirt that we can create from, that's from God. It existed here. No one created it. No human did it. It was here. And whether you believe in the Big Bang Theory or the most conservative view of creation, whatever it may be, it's still done by God.
Right.
It didn't come from nowhere. Nothing comes from, like, use the scientific process. Nothing comes from nowhere. Scientific process, everything deteriorates, falls out of order. Yet we have so much order in the world. That's not an accident.
It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, you and I, we could have a different view of God, or how he worked, or how he created things, or how you pray and connect with him, whatever. But the fact is, there's God.
Yeah.
And we each have our own responsibility to connect to him. And even after all these years, scientists can't do anything without starting with God's creation.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things, actually, just being intentional for me this month has been really crazy, how my eyes have been opened and how God has just sort of nudged me in really, really cool ways. And I actually just want to share one. I was outside. I usually get up in the morning and make a cup of coffee and sit outside now that it's nice out and just talk to God for a bit in the morning. And actually last week I was sitting out in this chair actually, and a butterfly came and landed right on my Jesus Calling book. And in my mind I was like, oh, I have to go get my phone to like take a picture of this because it was so cool. And I heard God say to me, no, Arica, this is for you. So I sat there for a second looking at this butterfly, and I've never noticed about butterflies before, or really taken the time to see when that close. Their bodies have like perfect hair, long hair. And I
wouldn't know much about that.
Long hair?
Well, yeah, God gave butterflies more hair than me. It doesn't seem fair.
Well, you had a lot of hair at one time.
At one time, yeah.
So
back in the day.
Anyway, it was just like a really cool thing that once you are, I guess, sort of awakened to being aware of how God interacts and works and shows us things through his creation, it changes. Like, it changes the way you see things.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Exactly.
Especially, and I think this is hard for us when we think about, it's kind of easy to see God's hand in nature and the beauty and the wonder. But he also created us. So part of the focus for, a lot of these lessons was viewing ourselves the same way we view things in nature. How does that look for you, or how have you done that for yourself?
Well, there's kind of two parts to that. The first, how do you view yourself? We've talked a whole bunch of times about God creates us and sees us as a masterpiece. And that's just really hard for me, and probably for most people, to look in the mirror and go, oh, I'm a masterpiece, that's amazing. It's just hard. But the fact of the matter is, that's how God sees you. So as you mature, to see yourself more and more like God does is really good for you. You're better than you think you are. I would just say it that way. God sees you as better than you see yourself. And to start seeing yourself more and more like God does is really healthy, because again, you're his design. All of this is his design. He's into you, even if you're not into yourself.
Well,
like I think there's a movie, like, He's Not That Into You. Isn't that a movie or something?
I think so.
God's into you. Yeah, and sometimes other people aren't. No matter how much you try. You might want to date them or whatever. They're just not that into you. Sometimes you're not even into yourself. But God's always into you. Again, that's amazing. And I didn't make it up. It's all over the Bible. However you decide to read the Bible, that is true throughout the entire Bible. God's into you.
So, okay, I get that. I totally get that. And maybe it's different for men and women. I think probably it is. But why is it so hard then for so many people? I mean, we counsel a lot of people on a weekly basis, and one of the biggest problems that we see is the way they see themselves. The confidence and not only that, but like the comparison to other people and how they don't measure up. And
you've been duped.
Yeah,
we
have been duped.
Years and years ago, when all you saw was the people that lived around you outside the farm or whatever in your rural community, you didn't have to worry about so much comparison.
Yeah.
Now, because you're online all the time or watching TV or whatever, seeing so many more people all the time, even in person, the comparison thing is just tough, because every single thing you see, they're trying to sell you something, and they're telling you you're not good enough. Your jeans aren't good enough. Your legs are too short. Your hair needs to be a different color. That's all you see, because they're selling you. But from the time you're a little kid now, you just think everything's not enough. You don't have enough toys, you need a brand new car. You don't ever have enough, including intrinsically. You're not smart enough, you're whatever. These days, a modern woman is supposed to be like a genius and a butt kicker at work. But she's also supposed to take care of the whole home and make meals and keep the home great for her family.
And be size 2.
And be size 2 and be intimate with her husband and be the perfect mother. And it's impossible. The image that's set out there for us is impossible to attain. And so we end up feeling miserable a lot when that just isn't God's design.
Yeah.
It's just a travesty, especially for young women who are becoming mature, to always think they're not enough. It's a crummy way to live.
Yeah.
It just is.
I think the Bible talks about having childlike faith, and like the faith of a child, and Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me." And it makes me think of two things. First of all, when you have a baby, they are perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of why the Bible speaks about that, is that we should use that and compare that to ourselves even now. That perfection that we see in a baby is the same perfection that is in us.
Well, that your Father, God, sees in you.
Yes.
Like if you've ever had a child, the baby is amazing. It's so beautiful, and you're so worried about every little thing that could hurt it. And I remember the first drive home from the hospital. I'm going way below the speed limit, and I'm ticked at everyone else. Lady, slow down! I got a child in the car.
Yeah.
And that was at age 20-something or whatever, and it just your whole perspective changes because of your child. It just does. That's how God sees each one of us individually.
Right.
He claims to be our Father, and He loves you like a father, and better than a human father. Don't compare God to your father, who's imperfect. God is the perfect Father. And I think we get screwed up with that sometimes. We see imperfections in ourselves as parents, or imperfections in our parents, and then think, well, God's a parent. No.
Yeah.
God's a perfect parent, and we try to parent like God, but we can't love our children as much as God loves us.
Well, and I think I heard this as well, and this has also changed my life in knowing and resting in the fact that you, right here, sitting right now, or anyone watching, and me, we will never be loved more than we are. No matter what we do, even if we don't do something right or mess up, you are as good as you will ever be in God's eyes, right where you're at. Yeah. Okay, so I said two things. So the second thing is, do you remember when your kids were little, and I remember one time actually we were outside of a restaurant, and my son Landon was 2 years old, and he saw a caterpillar on the ground for the first time, and he got down on his stomach and just looked at the caterpillar, picked it up, and it was just the awe and the wonder in a little kid.
I hope he's watching this. I really do, because Landon has grown up to be a great man. So to hear this story about him, it amuses me. He's 2 years old laying on the ground, because I know him more as a man than I do a 2-year-old.
But if you think of that, the awe and the wonder that a child has when they see something like that for the first time. I think the Bible talks about that stuff as a reminder for us to open our eyes and don't be so distracted by everything around us and jobs and busyness and schedules, and just take some time and just be and enjoy what God gave us to enjoy.
Yeah, there's a little kernel of this, though, that we're missing, that I didn't realize until we started talking, and I took a drink of this water. This mug was given to me as a gift. You probably can't read it, but there's an outline of Sasquatch, and it says, "I want to believe." I kind of do.
In Sasquatch?
Yeah. Now, there probably isn't Sasquatch, right? There probably isn't. However, there's a whole bunch of creatures that we still don't know about. They discover new creatures in the ocean all the time. They discover new creatures in the jungle all the time. So we're still discovering, as a human race, we're still discovering. So for me, I'd like to believe that someday, like, Sasquatch will be discovered and it's this incredible animal or whatever. It'd be fun, right? It's just fun. I want to believe because it's fun. You got to want to believe in God too. It's real easy to sit around crabbing all the time. Why is this the way it is? Why does the world work this way? Blah, blah, and just walk around unhappy all the time.
Yeah.
You got to kind of want God to have God. You kind of got to want to believe. So as I look at nature, and I'll come back to where I started, as I look at nature around me, I want to believe in God. I do. And then I see God. I see him in the beauty of nature. We were gonna have a rabbit for this. This was my dream. It's been a dream for a long time. I wanted to do it in a sermon. I wanted to hold a rabbit while we talked about God, because here's why I would do it. As humans, we've progressed so far. We can do a lot to create a rabbit, right? Like, you can draw a rabbit, and the best artist can draw an amazing rabbit. You can make a clay rabbit and paint it, and it looks totally realistic. You can have a stuffed rabbit that's so fun to cuddle. Those are great things that we can do as humans. Scientists can probably clone one. I don't even know. However, nothing compares to the rabbit that God can make. We can do a lot as humans, but that rabbit that you see run across the yard, we can't do that. And I see God in the rabbit. Now, the funny part is we had this rabbit all lined up to do for this video. However, once we were about to get it, the woman that we were going to borrow it from said, well, it probably won't sit still in your lap, it doesn't like to be held, and it might bite you. So I like you guys and all, but I wasn't really willing to risk being bitten by a rabbit on camera. So
yeah, we couldn't find a tame enough.
It would have been even better if I was holding a bunny right now, but just think about it. Do you want to believe in God or not? When you see a rabbit, do you see God? Do you see some human creation? You can find God for yourself in your own way, in all sorts of ways, and a very, very powerful one is in nature.
Is in nature. Well, that reminds me of that verse from Romans where it was like, we see the invisible qualities of God, and it says you have no excuse for not knowing him because he's all around us.
Yeah. I just kind of want to sit outside all day now.
I think I have
We're
been a lot
supposed to go back to
summer.
work after this. I don't know. I don't know. This is great.
Yeah, and I think living here too makes us just appreciate the warmth in the summer so much more.
Yeah.
There's one more
and
thing.
it could be different. Like, I like summer, but someone likes winter and they see God in winter too.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Connect to God in any way you like through nature. It doesn't have to be my way or anyone else's way.
Yeah, I think there's another thing too, is like the power of nature is evident in the power of God, or the power of God is evident. You know, last week, I think, when we had really bad storms coming and rolling through, and it's like there's like this fear a little bit, but kind of excitement and awe of like, you have no control. You have no control over what God is going to do in the weather, and it's very much like our life.
It is, and then respect the massive power, right? Like those storms, giant lightning and thunder, and the power of the wind. Like somewhere in Wisconsin, I think they had a 100-mile-an-hour wind or something.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from? Who made it? Like, it didn't come from nowhere. Wind just doesn't boom. I mean, there's a scientific process to it, but it all starts somewhere.
Right.
Where? From who? Right? The power of the wind, the power of the sun is amazing. I saw someplace had a big giant wave come in, and like the power of just normal waves. Like you sit on the ocean and watch all the way down the beach, all those waves that come in one after another, one after another, one after another. If we could harness that power efficiently, it'd be amazing.
Right.
And it just exists.
Well, and I think it's something we have to remember is that after every storm, there is a calm. And that's the same that, you know, for our lives. We have storms, we're going to have storms. But to trust God through it and know that the calm is coming. And you mentioned in one of your lessons about a forest fire, you know, the devastation and the helplessness, but then life comes really, really soon after.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful metaphor for our life. There's one more thing I want to talk about, in that Mike and I are really different in this way, but the healing powers of nature. I am really into oils. And my sister actually is a certified herbalist, and so she's done a lot of studying on plants and the healing properties of it. And as you can see, Mike over here laughing about it, because I think parts of you are like,
I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, but
I don't know. But
I'm not totally against it. there's tons of plants and minerals and all sorts of things that can heal us, and that's where medicines even come from. I just like that some medical professional has taken the plant and turned it into a pill versus just like
making
squishing the plant and rubbing it on me.
Yeah.
Whatever. But again, I credit God. If a scientist is involved or not, I still credit God because it didn't come from nowhere.
Yeah.
I want to believe.
That part of it just amazes me, is that we can literally, our bodies are meant to be nourished from the outside in, and He has given us everything we need for that right here on this earth. And people have been sustained, by it for so many years. Okay, so you've traveled a lot. And so in all your scuba diving stuff, and you took, a bazillion day road trip with the kids and Janet, 40 days, I think you mentioned. What has been your favorite piece of nature that you
Under
really...
the sea, easy. I mean, I love everything. I love being on the lake fishing, walking in the woods. It's all like A+. But like scuba diving is a like triple plus, because you don't hear anything else. You're in a whole different world, and all you can see is like what's in your goggles right here, and every look is like its own little universe. And that little universe doesn't know anything about what's going on up here, politics and all this stuff. They know nothing. They've got their own life down under the sea, and they're living it. And so you get to like peek into their life, and it puts things in perspective. Right? Like somehow they all have a life and they're living it and they're having children and all this stuff under the sea,
Yeah.
And baby fish, I don't know if mother fish calls her babies children or not, but you know what I'm saying? Like
right.
It's a whole different world, and you get to peek into it, and it starts to make your world have a whole different look or a different perspective to your own world. I love it. I just love it. It's totally relaxing. I just love it.
Yeah. Well, for me, I went on a trip to the Sea of Cortez once, and that is just so much untouched beauty in the sea, and beaches that no one ever really goes to, and I just saw seals, just hundreds of them sunning themselves outside. And I didn't go scuba diving, but snorkeling, and that too. I think for me, being by the ocean, there's something about that where God is just there.
Yeah.
God's there. Yeah, and another thing too, this time of year, if I sit in the backyard at night when the dragonflies come out, to me, that is just like God is just like throwing glitter.
Dragonflies?
Lightning bugs. I'm sorry, lightning bugs. Yeah. It's like He's taking confetti or glitter and just like giving us a gift in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the last thing you want to leave us with today?
I'll just go back to something I said earlier. You have to want God. God claims in Scripture that He's there if we're looking for Him. It even says, if you knock, the door will be opened. If you seek, you will find. That's how God has it set up. He doesn't force Himself on you, but He's everywhere around you all the time. And for you as an individual, it just has to start with a want. You can want to come out here and experience God while you have a picnic or chat with a friend or whatever, or you can not want to. But if you want to connect with God, you can. Every day, all the time, 24 hours. God's just not for Sundays.
I agree, and I'll leave you with this one thing too. I tell clients this almost every session. Just ask. Just ask Him whatever it is you need, want, desire. God, help me to see You. I don't know if I believe in You. Help me to see. I firmly believe that when you ask, He will show up.
Yeah.
He will show up. Well, it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys are going to go outside and look at things in a different way a little bit after just spending some time with us here today. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.